Welcome to The Class Athlete, the ultimate podcast for parents and coaches dedicated to fostering the holistic development of young athletes, hosted by the founder of the Class Athlete Youth Athletic League, Roy Bova. Each week, we'll dive into the topics that matter most, from effective coaching techniques and nurturing talent to fostering teamwork, sportsmanship, and mental toughness. We'll explore the latest trends in youth sports, we'll debunk the myths, and share practical strategies that empower parents and coaches alike. Let's make every game a lesson, and every lesson a victory.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Class Athlete Podcast. It's Patrick Sirmeyer. Here we are, middle of summer here in Orlando, Florida, and we're very hot in regards to physical heat here in the summer and also hot with guests. In fact, I'm excited today. I've got a friend of mine, longtime friend, someone who I've been looking forward to having on the podcast to talk about quite a bit, and that's Mr. David Pringle. I'm going to get into some of his credentials and background, but Dave, you're fresh off of actually coaching at the UCF summer baseball camp. Tell us how it's going today and how camp was this week.
Yeah, man. Hey, Patrick. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm really excited to be here. Camps are great. It was hot this week, but we're staying cool when we can and transitioning around really quickly. Just providing a nice, safe space for kids in the area just to come and learn the game of baseball from UCF college baseball players and staff. It's a good experience out there. The kids are in the stadium. They're in the locker room. They're taking swings in the batting cage. Just a great experience for them just to come out and just to get better. So
yeah,
been having a great time.
My son Carson attended a few weeks ago, and I really appreciate you, taking care of him while he was there. He had an awesome time, and I would actually recommend any kid here in Central Florida to sign up or have his parents sign up for the UCF Summer League Camp. So let me get into some of your credentials for those listening, because if you're actually I would say a recognized face here in Central Florida regarding baseball and teaching, but not everyone knows you on a personal basis and some of your background. But since I've known you for so long, I know you to be a graduate of Rollins College. In fact, one of the things we talked about, which is really cool, we'll dig into, is your senior year, you had a chance, your team made it to the College World Series. You had a chance to pitch in the College World Series, which is a very, very rare feat for so many people. Afterwards, you got into teaching. I know we talked about the fact that you're teaching today while also doing public and private coaching. I've seen you coach at the local recreational league, and I know you've got a son who's very committed, heavy into developing into baseball as well. But, we've talked a lot about the philosophies and some of your mindset around coaching. But if you don't mind me asking, just because I know it was a long time ago, we're old men today, but can you remember back to your College World Series days and what that was like in Rollins and some of the memories you have?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like it was it was so long ago, but it just feels like it was yesterday. I can still feel like what it felt to be on the mound, but it was a testament to how hard we had worked that season to get there. I think that's the biggest thing I can see just looking back on it is we had a team that was just determined and full of grit and a never say die attitude, and we never gave up. And I think that was really fitting for me to kind of end my playing career just playing in the College World Series. And then right after that, I went straight into coaching. And it's kind of funny because the first job that I had coaching a travel team, Rich Wallace and I, who's the new head coach at UCF, one of my really good friends, we started a travel team right after we had graduated. And it all comes full circle because that's why I'm over here at UCF now today, is because of Wally. And the program that he's trying to build depends on the youth. So we're just trying to reach back out to the community and just make an impact at the grassroots level. That's where it starts. And UCF's lost players to other schools throughout the years, and we're trying to turn that around and get some more local guys here. So that connection I have with him, it's funny how it's just been around for so long. But playing in the College World Series, probably one of the greatest accomplishments of my playing career, and I'm really blessed that I got the opportunity to do so. But it wasn't an easy road, that's for sure. I think that's the biggest thing. It's coming back to Orlando, I'd gone to USF first, and then I transferred to Rollins. But the hard work that I put in to come back from an arm injury just really took precedence for me. And like I said, playing in the College World Series was great. It's awesome.
You know, man, I appreciate you saying that. And I have to say, one of my favorite questions to ask people, but I'm gonna switch it up for you today. I often say, you know, now that you're obviously mature and have years under your belt, and look back with 20/20 vision, I would often say, what would you tell your younger self who was playing the sport back when you were younger? What advice would you want to give yourself, either to help you progress or whatever it might be? But you have a teenage son who's very committed and doing very well in the sport, and so, you know, although most kids don't want to listen to their parents, but you know, you have like basically a mini version of yourself, you know, working through his version of life. What would be that advice you would wish that he would hear or listen, that you, when you look back on your playing days or your days in school and you go, hey, if I could do it all over again, let me tell you what I would or wouldn't do. What are those things?
Yeah, I tell everybody Mike is way better than I was when I was younger. Just all around. I might have thrown a lot harder because that was kind of my MO, but other than that, like he's been really receptive to the coaching that I've kind of given him. But that's a great question, Patrick, because the thing that I would tell my younger self is just to be more patient. Like I would have learned some patience because the game of baseball is so hard, and I've talked to you privately a lot about this stuff, but regulating the central nervous system is so important to being successful in the game of baseball, and that's something that I really struggled to learn throughout my career. You know, Mike is a good sport. He's picked up on it. He's very calm and very, you know, even keeled out on the baseball field. But I wasn't. I played like a linebacker, and I played with my heart on my sleeve. And you know, when the highs were high, they were high, and then when the lows were low, I was in the dumps. So, but I think the biggest thing, even for the kids that I work with, that's what I learned throughout my career that was my biggest weakness, and it's actually turned into my biggest strength as a coach. I've just doubled down on just keeping my kids calm and keeping them moving on, and not, you know, just harping on the negativity. There's so much that can happen in baseball that's just negative, and if you get caught in the trap, it's impossible to get out of. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just regulating the central nervous system. I wish somebody would have taught it to me. You know, maybe they did and I didn't listen, but I wish I would have learned it. I think it would have furthered my career. But the good thing is now, you know, it's a blessing in disguise because I get to teach the next generation the stuff that I never learned. So it's important.
Well, I do want to ask, because you're one of the few people I've ever even heard reference the idea of putting focus on central nervous system and regulation. And we've talked about what some of those characteristics are, but like, can you give some real life examples, like a few things that a kid could do or a parent can help with a kid to make sure that they're developing or staying in balance in that fashion?
Yeah, I think the best way to kind of go about this is if you watch baseball or any level, college baseball, high school baseball, or the pros, you'll see how when the batters get in the batter's box, you know, most of them are kind of trying to take a deep breath, or they're trying to go through a routine to keep them relaxed. And you know, those guys are facing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, and that's not something that's easy to hit. I know it doesn't look that fast on TV, but trust me, I mean, you know, it's coming. And if you are anxious or amped up, you know, you're going to meet that energy with your energy, and it's just not going to work. It's got to be something that's, you know, calm, selective, and focused. So, and that's the only way it can get done. It can't get done with, you know, an anxious mind or a worried mind or a preoccupied mind. It has to be something that's kind of cleared. But for the youth kids, I think this is really something the parents can help them with, and not so much on the baseball field, but off the field, just by setting an example and modeling good behavior, you know, regulated behavior, I should say. If you know, if somebody cuts you off in traffic and yell at them and cuss at them and honk your horn. That's how your kid's gonna react on the baseball field when things don't go their way. And so just being the example in their lives outside of the baseball field really can help them just kind of regulate themselves while they're playing. The game's too hard to, let every high be too high and every low be too low. This game's just way too difficult. And the best players are the ones that can separate it and not get so emotional when they fail, just to learn from their mistakes and how can I get better and what did that pitch do? That's why I missed it, or what was my approach? Was I trying to pull the ball when it should have been going the other way, or should I have been looking for a different pitch that I got? Things like that. Like the mental side of baseball is just way more important than the physical side. It's a different game than most sports. So, but hopefully that answers your question. I think that setting an example is the best thing that they can do. Not yelling from the stands and just kind of letting the kids play. It's harder said than done. But if you're a parent, go to one of your kids' games. Just I challenge you just to listen to how many directives are shouted out to these kids to get their elbow up or to just throw strikes or to get in front of the ball. And as an adult, we don't want people talking to us like that as it is. So, kids don't respond to it well either. They just don't. They feel like they've done something wrong. They need encouragement. And to be honest, as a player, and Pat, you played enough baseball to know that when you're on the field, you can't really hear what's going on. Like,
No.
Your mom may be screaming, but you can't understand what she's saying. So kids are like that. They're not adults. Who knows what's going through their minds when they're out there on the field. So just trying to just step away and just let them play. And then afterwards being able to have like a calm conversation about, what happened or what they're trying to do or what they felt there. We always want to do something about the situation in the moment, but even as a coach, these kids don't listen to me during the game. They definitely aren't going to listen to mom screaming from the stands. So,
well, you hit my hot button in coaching. You and I in the recreational league, we quite often see the parents and the coaches, barking out orders. For that exact reason, I've learned from a few people that you take the moment, not in the moment, but after the at bat, after the play, and you look them in the eye and you just have a conversation of, hey, what happened? What would you do differently? What can you learn? So you need their brain to have like a small wrinkle in the moment and go, okay, great. So you've understood that, and then next time you hope you do differently. And oh, by the way, even if you don't, now we know we'll just practice on that. But I use a joke. If you ever look online, it's about parents and coaches yelling to a pitcher, just throw strikes, just throw strikes.
Like I know
to do,
right?
And,
exactly. That's what I'm trying to do out here, Dad.
It's funny because I'm biased, but there's a few parts around sports that I think are that require the nerves of steel: hitting, pitching, being a quarterback, playing golf in front of a crowd, and maybe a free throw in basketball. But what they're team sport scenarios except for golf, where you have this individualized opportunity where all eyes are on you to perform at your best, right? And so if you think about football, all eyes are on the quarterback to make that play and that throw, but the receiver is out there. He can't think too much. I mean, he's making choices about how he's going to run that route and what he's going to do on some things, but he has to be in the moment to react very quickly, or the basketball player has to be moving in motion to grab the ball and make the shot. So your brain can't really engage too much. But, when you're hitting in baseball or pitching, you are siloed with enough time for your brain to engage, and you almost have to think but not think too much,
Right. Yep. It's fair. It's a very unique skill for sure. And Pat, something I want to hit on too is I tell parents this all the time. Kids just want you to know that you love them, that they're loved, and you can't fake it. And when it comes to sports, we can't condition kids to tie their self-value to how they perform in sports. So I think that's another thing is as an adult, like, we have to really truly show our kids love and just know that we love them whether they strike out 4 times or whether they throw, half their passes or incomplete passes, or if they miss half of their free throws. Like, we still have to just double down on telling them that it's fine and they're going to get better, and it'll help them to just regulate things themselves, to know that they're loved. It's a basic human quality to feel love from the people that are closest to you. And if your kid doesn't feel that because you're screaming at them because they're not hustling down the line or something, that's going to be more detrimental to their life. Like, forget like making the major leagues. Like, we need to keep these kids happy so that they can really be productive adults in our community. And that's what I really love this podcast, because it's so just catered to our community. But when you look at it, like, kids don't have a lot of time to play sports. Maybe they play sports until they're 14, 15 years old. Mm-hmm. If you're a little bit better, you go a little bit longer. But even then, even if you're the best, you're done by 25. And you still have your whole life ahead of you. And we need people in our Seminole County community that are able to regulate their central nervous system, or are able to love their families, regardless of what's happening. And that's what I'm most excited for our community. I think we have a really good base. We have a lot of athletic talent in our community for sure, but the just regulating the central nervous system and being a good citizen is just going to take it to the next level and just keep it going for a long time. So
you bring up some good points, man. In fact, as you know, well, a couple things you hit on that I would love to reference. For anyone who listens, my encouragement to a young athlete, it seems to be the process is you play recreational or competitive. You hope you make your high school team. You hope you can keep going in college, and then you can play in some pro or semi-pro version. Like, that's the progress of call it, maturing in your sport. But when you talk about like teenagers who maybe just, I don't know, lose interest, or just they feel as though they're falling behind, or they didn't make a team, they got cut, my encouragement would be just keep playing. I mean, just no matter what that sport is, go find another team to play for. Just find another team to play for. Go find another competitive group that you can just keep playing and training and having a good time. The growth spurt or the maturity or whatever just happens at different levels for different people. I'm thinking about, I don't know if you ever watched the documentary for the Bulls called the Last Dance that came out in the COVID time. Well, when they really focused on Scottie Pippen this one episode, and Scottie references that he grew like 6 or 7 inches over one summer in college. I mean, he went to like Arkansas State possibly. I mean, very small, not well-known college for basketball. And he had developed point guard skills, but then had grown himself to be small forward level. And then he gets drafted by the Bulls, and of course, one of the best players of all time. The point who knew he was going to grow at that pace, right? What if he had quit when he was younger? He's like, whatever. And then all of a sudden he becomes one of the best. And it's just, I would encourage all kids and parents, if your kid gets cut from a team, if your kid, I don't know, is just having a tough year, it's okay. Change teams, change coaches, change something. Let that child fall back in love with their sport, and then just keep it going. And you'd be surprised, because you know what? They might not even hit their peak till they're like, mid-20s, if they want to keep playing then,
Yep. You had a good podcast with Jared Goodwin, who's one of my good friends, and I would double down on his advice here. But if it's ever a situation where your son or daughter feels like maybe in baseball or softball they don't want it, or they want to kind of give up, I think finding a good coach to kind of step in. That's what was Jared's advice, but that's my advice too. Is just, sometimes the parent coach kind of dynamic needs to be separated, and at one point there comes a time where you just got to be a parent. So I think Jared's podcast a couple episodes ago was really good to piggyback off of this one. Just Jared's been a good friend of mine. We played travel ball together when we were like 15 years old. Stayed in touch all throughout college, and then ended up coaching against each other in high school when he was at Haggerty and I was at Lyman. So we had some battles when we were players and some battles when we were coaches. But he's a great guy and he's got a lot of great advice. It's a really good podcast.
I appreciate you saying that. And it was real good to connect with him. You brought up a topic earlier in the conversation about the mental game of baseball. I just want to make a reference. When I was in high school, I think my mom gave it to me as a gift. There was a book called The Mental Game of Baseball. She bought it for me. I have to go back and find see if I still have it and see if the information is still relevant. I'm kind of interested to see, what it was like. This is over 20 years ago that I read it. But I remember thinking to myself, like, it was so foreign for me to think, like, what? Like, there's a concept of, like, strengthening your mind in this sport because it's just, it's the kind of sport that can tear you apart. So when I find it, I'm going to go reread it and tell you what it says. But
yeah, I have it too. I have that book too. It's been on my bookshelf. Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome,
yes,
man.
Sir.
Well, I want to switch gears for just a second. So, and this will kind of make this the last part of our podcast. One thing that I find pretty fascinating, and I think is really relevant to what's happening today in youth sports. So let's talk about some evolutionary topics. We're in a time right now where, depending on what your sport is, you can play all year long. You can play the most competitive teams. They use the phrase travel ball for baseball or travel anything. You can basically travel around the country and find the most competitive teams to play and really compete against and just see, how you rank against those. And it's for someone who loves their sport, as a child who just wants to keep playing, there's opportunities to keep it going. Well, one of those things, though, that in the evolution is that now there are kids who are making active choices with their family to leave the public school system and do some form of homeschool, virtual school, so that they have the time to focus on their sport. I'm kind of a proponent of it. I mean, I like it. It's not for everybody. You have to have those conversations internally at your home. But, like, that's something that I know you do. You do private coaching. You do virtual teaching as well. For those who want to be able to kind of make that choice and say, hey, I want to go all in on my sport and I want to be able to put that focus in there. I know you provide that opportunity. What would you say, like, what are some of the characteristics of, say, the family or the child that you think should consider that as an option?
Yeah, great question, man. That's a great question. So what I'm a firm believer in is that every family is different. You have to make decisions in the best interest of your family. And for some families, being able to pull your kid out of public school and into, like, some type of home-based program comes with the challenges come with that, with how are we going to stay home with the kids? How are they going to get socialized? How productive are they going to actually learn the material? Like, how productive are they going to be when they're learning it? But for me, I've pulled my son out of the brick and mortar public school system, and he takes Seminole County virtual school classes. But over the last 4 years, we've done that. And it's just enabled us to, like, really just exponentially improve his baseball skills. Now I'm in a unique situation where I work from home anyway, so I'm able to stay home with him, and that's what I mean about just it working. It's different for different families. If we feel like if a family feels like this can be done, then I would encourage it. Don't be afraid. There's a lot of fear and a lot of, like, uneasiness that comes with, having an alternative, educational plan for your kids. But it's totally doable. The state of Florida totally supports it. And the thing for me that I look at addition through subtraction. So if you take a kid out of the public brick and mortar school system, sitting in the classroom for 45 minutes a period, or sometimes an hour and a half a period, and being at school for 7 hours is really kind of inefficient. But if you take your kid out of that, then they get the opportunity to be more efficient, to work on athletic skills besides coding the athletic skills out of them. When kids sit in a desk, their hips are in a front chain position to where, it's not an athletic position. And the more and more that they sit in those positions, the more and more the athletic ability is going to be coded out of them. especially when they're between the ages of 8 and 13. Those are really formidable ages for them to double down on their athletic ability. So it works for some people and it doesn't for others. If your son or daughter's kind of on the fence about sports, I don't think that it would be the best decision. I mean, you as a parent, whether your kid's committed, and it can't be that you're more committed, because what'll happen is, you'll be pulling teeth to get them to do their schoolwork, or you'll be, really trying to get them out of bed to go practice. And so it doesn't work for everybody. Some kids need the socialization at school as well. That's what they like. And that's okay too. But we're in a society, I think, where socialization is so weird for kids now. It's just different. And most of them socialize online. It just depends on the kid's personality. But if you're a parent listening out there that it's something you're thinking about, I encourage you to take the plunge and just, it's definitely doable. And it's just, it sets them up for putting them in positions to where they can achieve their goals. I've working for Seminole County Virtual School. I've been teaching for them for 8 years. This is my 18th year in the Seminole County public school system. So I'm almost 2 decades in. But I see everything. I see kids that are gymnasts that travel around the world. There's kids that are involved with equestrian. I have a couple of kids that are golfers. One of my kids that I've had was on the junior PGA tour. So there's, and those are Seminole County public school students that take virtual school classes. So it's something that's already being done. And it's just unique situations where the parents have thought outside the box and just gone all in. But I've also seen it. Yeah, I've also seen it not work for people too. So I've seen kids start it and then it just kind of fizzles out and they don't have the motivation to do the schoolwork, and then they end up eventually going back to school. But in the grand scheme of things, like, we found the right method for that child to learn. So that's the positive of it, besides looking back and saying, oh, well, we wasted this time homeschooling. Well, really what you did is you found out that this is the right way to do it. So it's a very unique situation, but I really encourage parents to think outside the box for sure.
I think it's ahead of the curve type thinking, in my opinion. You brought up some sports that uniquely would require someone maybe to be virtual or homeschooled. Equestrian, golfing, because there's a lot of tracking to tournaments. Like if the sport you're playing or the thing you're involved in requires a lot of tournaments, maybe dancing could be the same way. But traditionally in some of the big sports we're used to hearing, you don't really see it that often. But I see it as a growing trend. And one thing that you said to me earlier before, and I would agree with this topic, which is the home situation makes a big difference as to whether or not it'll be successful, because I can imagine the parents still have to have some involvement with their child and help facilitating it, even though they're doing virtual school, say, along with you. There's a phrase that I like to talk about often, which is, I'm a believer that when you're younger and you don't have a lot of responsibility and you're growing and maturing, you need a lot of imposed discipline in your life. And that imposed discipline are the people guiding you on the path, keeping you on the path, not letting you they'll maybe give you some creativity, but don't let you get off too much. As you develop your path, your pace, your passion, you start to realize, like, okay, you have some identity. Here's who I am. This is what I do. This is the direction I'm going. When you have clarity of that, you rely more on self-discipline, because now you have to kind of clear the next step in your path. Imposed discipline doesn't really need as much, because that's what got you to where you are, but you have to have some structure around it. And I think for these young kids you're talking about now, imposed discipline, so taking them out of the public school system, they're still going to need that imposed discipline. Their sport, you as a virtual school teacher, their parents, to help keep them on that straight and narrow.
Yeah, correct. Like a support system,
Yep.
That's best for them. Yeah.
Well, all right. So, Dave, I want to end on there's a couple things. One is, I think I do want to follow up on this topic in the future and doing another podcast, because I think it's
Love
going to
to.
be far more common. We're going to see a lot of people who have done this. And, the other thing I wanted to talk about with you more is some coaching philosophy. So we'll get into that a little bit as well and the next time we do a podcast. But one of the things I end all the podcasts with is I end on some sports trivia.
Okay.
So, is your brain ready? I'm going to give you a baseball trivia.
Oh, no, man. It's been getting fried by the sun all morning.
Well, this one, I don't know if you're going to know it. Not everyone knows this. I had to look it up. But do you know how many perfect games have been thrown by a major league pitcher?
Oh, man. It's not many. It's probably a handful, maybe 16.
You're close. Close. I'll give you one more guess. Higher than that, though.
23.
Ooh, you're very close. It was 24. And as we know, there was one that was almost a perfect game that got taken away from a pitcher because of a bad call by an umpire like 7 or 8 years ago. And I'm trying to remember what the high pitcher.
Galarraga, I think his name was.
Maybe. Yeah. And I wish Major League could go back and make changes to those historical things, because that guy definitely deserved his perfect game.
Yep. Yeah, those perfect games are hard to throw. I threw a no-hitter in high school to win our district championship when I was at Colonial. But man, talk about a perfect game. It's difficult. I think I screwed that up in the first batter because I hit him. So. If you know me, that's not a surprise.
Yes, so the intimidation out there. Well, buddy, it's been good to connect with you, and I've probably seen you at the baseball fields, over the next upcoming season, and we look forward to watching Micah grow as well. So.
Yes, sir. Hey, and tell Carson I said hi, and thanks for having me on, Patrick. Really enjoyed it, and look forward to coming on again.
All right, buddy. See ya.
All right, have a good day. See ya.